technical hitches, you know, how these things work. You cannot be 100% about them. I have with me in the studio PRINCEWILL OKORIE. We shall be discussing the role of the power sector in our nation's economic development. Once again, you're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Like I was saying earlier on, I said when we talk about the role of the power sector in economic development, what actually are we talking about?
We're talking about the capacity of the power sector to enhance productive activities, to enhance socio-economic activities in the nation. Practically speaking, you know very well that no productive activity can go on. The artisan needs it. The hairdresser needs power. The carpenter needs power. Even the person selling in his kiosk needs power to cool, make his drinks cool and all that. In the media, you need power. Every segment of society needs power to function. The educational institutions need power. So it is required. So where you don't have efficient supply of power, it affects employment generation. It increases the rate of unemployment, and it increases the dependency on imported goods, because productive capacity of the local manufacturers will not be there. So people will want to depend on foreign products because that is where they have the power to function. If you look at most manufacturing companies here, most of them have relocated to the nearby countries where they have a stable power supply. It affects the cost of products, because by the time you produce and check how much you spend, look at the hotels. The money they spend in buying diesel every day increases the cost of staying in those hotels. So their running cost increases, and it increases what the customers pay. So power is really very essential and necessary.
Okay, talking about investors relocating, are you saying that the power sector has not really fulfilled its mandates?
It hasn't. It has not at all. That is why you could see the transformation from ECN to power holding company to privatization. If it was working, probably from power holding company, it wouldn't have come to privatize their companies now. The essence of privatization ab initio was that the efficiency wasn't there. There was poor efficiency, there was poor management, and it was expected that if it is privatized, the supply will increase. There will be more efficient supply of power that will help the economy advance. But here we are. It hasn't come to be. So it has not really delivered as expected.
So what would you say the challenges that hindered even the privatization of the power sector from delivering on its mandates to Nigerians?
I'm a Christian. And the Bible says if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Okay. We are in a democracy where you expect leadership to take responsibility. Take responsibility in terms of enforcing the laws that are made. Take responsibility in terms of ensuring that institutions of state deliver on their mandate. Here you have a Ministry of Power, expected, a Ministry of Power with many other departments and agencies under it. You have the regulator. You have in fact, the privatization policy is well packaged. If you look at the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and the regulations that have been made, they are good and fine. But enforcement and implementation of policies is the problem. Let's look at, for instance, I was locked down in the East under this COVID-19. I intervened, my organization, on behalf of my organization, we intervened on behalf of some communities. And what we found out is really challenging. You cannot imagine how distribution companies will disregard the laws, but they expect citizens to obey them. And then whose responsibility is it to call them to order?
But are you sure citizens are aware of these laws that we're talking about?
It is still part of the problems. Is there no responsibility in getting the citizens to be aware? But there's one good story now. Just 2 days ago, because my Association for Public Policy Analysis, we've drawn the attention of the Minister for Power and the National Power Training Institute that has the responsibility of training skilled and unskilled manpower in the power sector. And we've been advocating that there should be electricity consumer protection education program so that we can educate the consumer groups to know their rights as consumers. We can educate the discos to know how they can have a harmonious relationship between them and the consumers they are serving. But I'm glad to say that on the 13th, National Power Trading Institute has issued us a letter approving that partnership for training of consumers, consumer groups in the electricity sector should be done. So that is one step that could help in getting the consumer groups understand what Section 80, 81, and 82 of the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, which is on electricity consumer protection and licensing performance standards. It shows the responsibility or the rights the consumer of electricity has within the privatized electricity sector. Take, for instance, you cannot be billed on estimation without following estimated billing methodology. Many consumers are not aware that the transformers that serve their communities are supposed to have meter. Because it is through that meter that the distribution company will check the quantity of energy that has come to your environment. And then when they check, they remove the losses and then share the rest to the consumers in that environment. But what you see is that in most cases, the distribution companies deliberately do not even put meter on the transformers.
Okay, so you're saying that the transformer can actually perform without a meter?
Yeah, the transformer will perform. The meter is about reading the quantity of energy that has come. Because if the distribution company is to give you a bill, they will base it on the energy you consume. So if you don't have a meter in your house, if you don't have meter in your house, and they're giving you bulk billing, like in some communities. Now, if they're giving them bulk billing, how do they determine the quantity of energy that has gone to the community? It is through the meter that is fixed on the transformer. So even where you don't have meter in your building, the meter on the transformer can be used to check how much energy that has been used. Then you do consumer enumeration in that community to now know how many consumers are using this electricity. It is them you will share this to. But what the distribution companies do is they will come just give you bill. In most communities, they are still under bulk billing. Bulk billing since 2016 has been stopped by NEC. But the distribution companies in most states of the country do not respect that law.
Now, you just mentioned something now, that bulk billing has been stopped by NEC since 2016, right?
Yes.
Okay, if distribution companies continue to bill people based on that bulk billing, who is to be blamed? Is it the distribution companies or NEC?
That is what...
Because if you put a policy, it is expected of you to go a step further to ensure that it is enforced.
You and I have responsibility in ensuring that there is enforcement. Every citizen of this country has a responsibility to contribute. For instance, Section 24D says it is of the 1999 Constitution as amended, says it is the duty of the citizen to contribute to the development and advancement of the community where he resides. But you reside in a community and you are being billed. The most painful and challenging is that virtually 80% of families have graduates in their homes. But these graduates hardly ask questions. These graduates who sit in their homes, they hardly ask questions about government policies. Now, they come bill you this way. You have in a community, you may not have less than 100 graduates who will not even bother to ask, how are we billed? Is there a meter on our transformer? As I speak with you now, we petitioned against the distribution company in the East over one community. They told the community they're owing them 5 million naira. And when the community now knew what we do, they came told us, we had to draw their attention. Tell us how you generated this bill. Do you know what they did just last week? I was called 2 days ago to be informed that because of our letter, what they've now gone to do is to go and install a meter on the transformer. Now claiming that they went to get reading, they couldn't get any reading. They now said they discovered that the meter that was there was faulty. They now removed it and put another one. Two issues are here. Assuming we didn't take that step. Another one now is, what is the justification for the 5 million naira that are now saying that the community is owing them? So you could see this is fraud. Now, enforcement of the regulations made by NEC is an issue. NEC tells you that the consumer should complain. Now, this consumer that will complain, does he know the regulations? Now, you ask NEC, NEC will tell you the regulation is on the internet. How many communities have the light to even check?
To even gain access.
To even gain access to it. Now, the issue again is, why is the state and local government kept away from electricity consumer education? Why are they kept away from contributing to assist NEC enforce these rules? Now, and you are told that the federal, state, and local government own 40% share in the electricity value chain. The question is, who represents the local government and states in the distribution companies? Do they have representation? Now, how do they get involved? And basically, the money that the distribution companies collect come from the states and local governments where people reside. And then these people do not know what is being done. So there is a fault in coordination, fault in management of the sector, fault in policy communication. You know, so when you have all these there, the problem is not privatization. The problem is the institutions of state. Look at NEMSA, for instance. How many citizens know what NEMSA is established to do? Is there no budget made for enlightenment? Is there no, because we've always complained that the inconsistent approach in enlightenment, you hear NEC tell you they are going for consultative forum. How many states do you do that? What is your staff strength? So what is wrong in getting the state ministries of public utilities to get involved in educating their citizens on this? Because it's a utility issue. What is wrong in local government works department or social service department or community relations department, getting community leaders to get them exposed to these things? But they are not done. Another issue you will see is you see a situation where the distribution company, irrespective of all these, still claims of inadequate tariff without declaring how much they make through estimated billing, bulk billing, which they are doing without even any meter to consider how to be able to transparently show how much energy the citizens have used. If going ahead to approve tariff increase for distribution companies, we are basing it that the citizens are not paying adequate tariff, whereas in most communities they pay almost 500,000 every month.
Yes.
Now this 500,000, if you times it in 1,000 communities, how much is it in a month? And who accounts? Where is it accounted for? There is no system, no structure for accountability on this estimated billing and bulk billing. Now they will give account through meter. And then which organization, we keep asking, what is wrong in NEC relating with civil society organizations to assist them bridge the gap in these states? So the issue is not privatization, but enforcement. Now look at another issue here.
Okay, now, let me just, I'll cut through your thoughts there. The issue is not privatization, like you said, but enforcement. But there was a time the distribution companies were also complaining that when they took over, that they discovered that most of the equipment were obsolete.
It is not a good excuse, because before you go into any venture, you would have done feasibility study. They didn't go into that thing without really knowing the way the sector was. The issue, I get worried. The discos have penchant for lies. I get worried. And another thing that worries me is sometimes when you want to talk about it, some of the heads in the agencies begin to say we don't want to antagonize discos.
Okay.
Now, some people begin to look at it as if you are antagonizing discos when you are saying the truth. The discos cleverly set up ANITS, Association of Nigerian Electricity Distributors. But we are at the consumer groups. Now you ask yourself, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, to what extent are they engaging the discos to see that consumers' rights are protected? To what extent? To what extent is NEC ensuring? The only NEC has provision there, go and complain. Is it also until you complain? How do you not get them prevent the problem before complaints?
And sometimes do these complaints, when people take these complaints, are they usually addressed? This is another issue.
I would say there is, if my organization take the address.
Yeah,
but the problem is, no, the problem is, no,
the
the act approves that an NGO, a consumer NGO, can complain on behalf of a consumer.
Okay.
So we have the capacity.
But can a consumer on his own or her own complain?
Of course you can. There are NEC forum offices. Okay. For instance, in the month of February, there was a complaint we took on behalf of a community to NEC forum office in Imo. I tell you, what they did was quite good. They looked at the issues, and this distribution company was claiming that the community was owing them 2-point-something million.
Wow.
While the community installed the transformer, bought the transformer, paid for all the expenses to put it in, and the distribution company made them pay for money that when they were not having any light, they paid so much money. And then we took up the matter. They had paid almost 1.9 million before they were put it, apart from the money they spent in buying transformer and installing it. Now, NEC, in their forum office, brought the EEDC, and we were there. So we had to present our case. NEC looked at it and told them to jettison the 2.5 million. They said the community should pay, that they shouldn't pay it, and they should debug the community.
Are you sure that community will continue to have electricity?
What the communities have, what they did, what the distribution company did again, we are taking them back to NEC. What they did now was they debugged the community, and without installing meter on the transformer of the community, they now went and gave them individual households to pay them 3,100. Now, if you check the 3,100 by the number of consumers living in there, it's even more than the money they were giving them on bulk billing. The question we're asking them is, how did you generate this bill? When we now wrote on that again, they quickly went and installed a meter on the transformer. But why was that transformer, the meter, not installed on the transformer earlier? Why would you wait until we raise that issue? Now, they've already collected 3,000 for 2 months from the consumers in that community. We are now planning to take them back to NEC to ask whether this quit they did was proper. So what we need in this country now with regards to power is we need more advocacy. And consumers need to be alive to be able to say, this is our right. Challenge these wrong things that are being done.
Okay, what about funding? Would you say, for instance, NEC is a government agency. Would you say, because sometimes when they come before the National Assembly, the first thing you hear them complain is paucity of funds. Don't you think that's a problem?
I don't think it's a problem because they can share responsibility with the state governments. I know that the state governments and local governments can share that responsibility of enlightenment. They can share that responsibility of assisting them to enforce if they want. Besides, they get funding from donor agencies. I know that MacArthur Foundation has funded NEC severally. And we as civil society even approach them sometimes to say, could you encourage MacArthur Foundation and other donors to support CSOs like us to assist you do it? They refused. They said no, that they are not, we should go and look for our own. If they give us, we should do that. We should be on our own. We left them. Now, they collect the money. And they cannot be claiming that the problem is the money. They can share the responsibility. Local government, get your people. This is what we want. Try to do this and get us reports. States, this is what we are doing. Do this and get us report. That can be done. Another issue here is, how can the generation companies generate 7,000 megawatts of electricity? And the distribution companies will distribute only 3,000 megawatts. What is it for? And they will not claim that the transmission lines are faulty.
Okay, that's another issue.
Now, the transmission line that is faulty, how many transmission lines are faulty? Is it all over the Federation? Which ones did they use to distribute the 3,000 megawatts? Is it to say that all the transmission lines in the country can only take 3,000 megawatts? Now, the transmission company of Nigeria need to address this. To tell Nigerians, yes, there are faulty transmission lines, but it can't be all of them. There are areas that the transmission lines are still okay. Now, why won't you transmit what is generated? Again, if you look at that again, if you distribute 3,000...
So now, what is the implication of not transmitting what is generated?
The implication is this. Number one, when they don't distribute all that is generated, they won't pay the GENCOs for the quantity not distributed. Oh, okay. Now, the GENCOs now spend their money to generate, expecting that the DISCOs will take this quantity of energy and pay them. They will now go take only 3,000 megawatts, at most 4,000, and leave the rest. So it puts the generation companies on deficit. That is the number two. It does not give the consumers enough energy to use. That is why they are reluctant in this metering policy. They wouldn't want the consumers to have meter, because if the consumers have enough meters, they won't be paying the much they are paying. Because it's sheer extortion. Giving people bills without meters to transparently show them how you have generated the money they are paying. So you now tell them general transmission is poor. If transmission is poor, okay, let them pay for the one you've been able to transmit. Now, because of that, you now see that they are reluctant in metering the consumers. Because if you meter consumers, and the consumers will pay according to what you give them. Yeah. So you'll be constrained to ensure that you distribute enough. And that is why, even as they're telling them about tariff increase now, that I say they've approved for them, there is a condition. One of the conditions being that you must pay almost 90% of the energy you are taking. And you see a situation where the discos equally, they collect money from the consumers, but they don't pay the GENCOs enough. You pay GENCOs 25%, or you pay how enforcement of the regulation is the major problem here. All the while we've been discussing this, I've been expecting one day that NEC official will be on set. But I don't see them come to discuss these things. And we keep talking about them behind them, as if what we are saying, but they should be able to validate some of the issues we are raising. So you see, the problem here is communities that are under bulk billing, under estimation, should stand up, because it is not possible to supply these meters to all consumers in Nigeria within 1 month or 2 months. That means that majority of consumers will still be on estimation. But these consumers need to rise up to really demand transparency in billing. And TCN should really address Nigerians to say, look, we have these transmission lines are okay, it's not the problem. Even if there are some that are faulty, this is the percentage of the ones that are faulty. This is the percentage of the ones that are okay. So that Nigerians will really know whether the discos are really failing to distribute enough based on their own decision, or whether it is true that the transmission lines are bad. These are some of the issues. But lastly, I will say again is, why is, like I said before, why is the local government not part of it? Why is the local government not part of it? It is important to explain. Now, the Consumer Protection and Licensing Performance Standards, and what they call Customer Service Standard of Performance for distribution companies. You see a situation where a consumer has a problem with his electricity. He complains. Like some people have been without electricity for 2-3 years because their transformer is faulty.
Yes, and they have to.
Yet they are being given they contribute money on their own to buy transformer.
And there are instances where communities actually hold meetings with NEPA officials to discuss how to get a transformer, and the community will still contribute money for either they call them cables or the transformer itself. Is a consumer supposed to contribute money for transformer or any electricity power equipment that is meant to be supplied by government? If
I am a distribution company, I supply you electricity for the purpose of you paying me money, why will you be the one to provide the infrastructure with which I will supply you electricity? It is based on the contribution of the local governments and their communities in infrastructure that made the privatization policy identify that federal, state, and local government will own 40% share based on what they have contributed. But how is it realistic now? Bureau of Public Procurement Bureau of Public Enterprises you need to go to them and find out from them. They were the ones that midwifed this policy. Why is it that the states and local governments are kept like that? And then why is it that the people are still made to be the ones to finance infrastructure, and the distribution company assumes ownership? They will tell you need to tell them, and they will agree with you so that they can know the way. Even when you approach them, they will find one reason or the other and there's a loot. Now, because they know they are collecting money, whether they serve you or not. Otherwise, if they complain of inadequate tariff again, you see how unjustified it is. Because if it is justified, a distribution company that is transparently collecting revenue will not allow a community to stay without light. Because when the transformer is bad and you are not supplying them light, you know you'll be losing money. But they are not losing money. Because oftentimes they will cry for federal government to come to their aid. Federal government will give them money. CBN will raise money. They will be looking. Now, they keep giving them money, which I believe is not proper. Why will you be giving money to a company that has abandoned transformers and abandoned communities not to having light? The question again is, who is evaluating the state of transformers? Who is evaluating the state of these transformers? If the state governments were involved and the local government councils were involved, they will be able to generate data of the number of transformers that are efficient, that are working, and the ones that are not working. Can NEC provide that data now? Can NEC provide that data of the number of transformers that have been functional in the last 1-2 years and the ones that are not? And then ask the distribution companies, why are these transformers allowed to remain without being functional?
Well, Mr. Principal, I must cut through your thoughts because we are running out of time. Thank you very much for being part of the program. 2 questions have been thrown out, one for NEC and one for the TCN. We know they are watching, and we hope to get answers to these questions so that Nigerians can enjoy uninterrupted electricity power supply. We'll be taking a short break, and when we return this morning on ITV, we'll continue. Stay with us.